Hi, welcome to episode 271 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group also called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, March 30th, which I know because today is my sister's birthday, and I am coming to you from just outside or kind of on the edges of the Kansas City metro area. I hope you are healthy and well. If you are joining me for the first time, welcome. I know that I might have a few new viewers based on subscribers, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. And if you are coming back to join me again, thank you so much for coming back. As I had said, I hope that you are healthy and well in this sort of unprecedented time. We are doing okay. We just started basically social distancing week 3. My husband has been home from the office for a full 2 weeks now. I normally work from home, so my schedule is not as different as you might think, although we have certainly been leaving the house less than normal and not doing our weekly social activities like knit night and such. So this past week I got lots of knitting done. I can't wait to share with you. I'm thinking about some new projects. I also got some spinning done. We watched lots of TV and movies and some things that I wish I hadn't. I don't know if anyone has watched Tiger King on Netflix. I am reasonably certain that I would not have watched it if it weren't for coronavirus. So thanks, coronavirus. Totally bizarre, totally about a very small portion of people in the United States who are absolutely crazy. So I don't know if you've watched that. It was new on Netflix this week. I'm trying to think what else. Like I said, for the most part, we have been staying home. I cooked all of last week, and then this weekend we patronized some of our favorite restaurants. We had them, we did delivery once, and we picked up curbside once. So that was kind of the weekend. We did brave the markets, which in general are fairly well stocked. I'm losing hope of ever seeing Clorox cleanup wipes again, and not that I absolutely need them, but I'm down to about a quarter of a container, so I would be fine getting one more, but I've not seen any. There was some toilet paper this weekend, and the shelves were about half full. You know, there were certain things that were picked over, but in general we found everything that we needed. So we're still healthy, staying home, staying away from people, hoping to ride this out. Kansas City, so the Kansas City metro area is under lockdown until the end of April, and the governor for the state of Kansas also locked down the state of Kansas. I live out sort of southwest of the city proper, and Kansas City, for those who aren't familiar with it or aren't from the US, the Missouri River divides the states of Kansas and Missouri, and the city sprang up on both sides of the river. So despite the fact that we are actually two separate states and there are two separate Kansas cities, there's a Kansas City, Missouri and a Kansas City, Kansas, we function as one larger metro area. And for the metro area, it's basically 4 counties that comprise the metro area, and they all sort of issued as one jurisdiction the stay-at-home order till the end of the month. So that is why Wes is working from home, and we'll just be in till the end of the month, hoping to flatten the curve, stay healthy, keep others healthy, and generally, like I said, we've been going out maybe once a week to get takeout, picking up curbside, and then we have been going to the market once a week to stock up on whatever we may need. I have stockpiled some supplies. I won't say hoarding. I've stockpiled a few extra meals just in case we do become ill so that we do not have to go out in the general population, but we are still hoping that that won't be the case. I hope that you are well and healthy, that your families are doing well. If you are an essential worker, thank you from the bottom of my heart, whether you are in healthcare or working at grocery stores or fire or police or whatever you may do. Thank you. I am thinking extra good thoughts for you and hoping that you stay healthy in this strange and crazy time. So, I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on the negative, so let's get into crafting because I've had lots and lots of time to craft. So this week's tea is cardamom cinnamon. It is from the Republic of Tea. It is loose leaf. It's cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, cloves, other caffeine-free herbs and spices. So technically it is not a tea. It is an herbal, but that is what I have here. And I think the tin was probably between $12 and $14 from Republic of Tea. They have delicious teas. And that is what I am drinking today. And I'm actually just using a plain glass mug because it has a strainer. So I just used the whole thing. And I have had that before. I added just a little bit of sugar to it. The weather is nice here today. We have been having very spring-like weather. Unfortunately, quite windy over the weekend. So I've had a little bit of congestion from that, but I'm reasonably certain that it's just that. Because I haven't really been anywhere. But it's in the 60s. I'm looking this way because the window is this way. It's in the 60s. It's been kind of rainy, but it's been really nice. We've had all the windows to the house open, which is very pleasant and not always something we can do in March. And it has running around outside a little bit. I took a walk outside this weekend, and leaving the windows open and letting the air come in the house is at least kind of a nice thing to do, given that we're not getting out that much. So, cardamom cinnamon tea. And let's talk about the knits. I have lots to show you this week. I don't know if you remember, if you have been around for a while, about a month and a half ago, I was knitting a shawl called The Drifter by Tammy Gore, and I was knitting it in Zen Yarn Gardens Superfine Fingering, which is 100% superwash merino, and it is absolutely lovely. It is soft and fluffy, and if you remember, I was using sort of a brown multi-colorway and a white speckled colorway, and I ran out of yarn. Well, this past week, yarn reinforcements arrived, so I went ahead and finished. So this is The Drifter by Tammy Gore. It is sort of one of those elongated triangular pieces where you start at one end and work kind of growing in a triangle, and she has some lovely textured sections where you combine your colors and then just a lot of beautiful colors and textures just make this a great wrap, and then it finishes out at a point, sort of, it resolves this centerpiece. I don't know if you remember, I was talking about I ran short, and you do want to resolve kind of this centerpiece here where the center corner kind of levels off. So that is what I finished this week. There, truthfully, I ripped back a little bit because I had changed things to do some colors, so I ripped back to about here, I think, and then just finished from there. So it wasn't a ton of work, but it was a little bit, and I finished this one. This one is going to go back to them. All told, it took about 850 yards. And in the last couple weeks, I noticed that Tammy has revised the pattern yardage to say between 820 and 900 yards. Before it said something like 750 and 800, and I found that 800 was not enough on this one. Interestingly enough, it was on the first one that I knit, but I think that had to do with the drape of the fiber. The fiber that I used before was yak and camel, and that has significantly more drape and a little bit less squish factor, and so I think with the Superfine Merino, it just wants to squish up and be nice and cuddly and lovely. And so I think that's why it took a little bit more yarn to do this one. So I would definitely say you might need on the edge of 3 skeins. I did have to break into a 3rd skein to get this one done. But this is lovely. It is going off to be photographed now, and then I believe it will be offered as a kit from Zen Yarn Garden. So that is The Drifter by Tammy Gore. So that was kind of one that had been sitting dormant for a while. Most of the knitting was done before, but I worked on it for, I think, 2 evenings this week. The one that I did finish this week, although this one is not blocked yet because I was blocking The Drifter, this is the garter shawl that I decided to knit for myself. And it is garter and eyelet, and the pattern is called Bondi. It is by Meg Gatsby Designs, and it was originally written for her yarns, Atelier Atelier Yarns, and it was written for a fingering weight skein, a single skein, and meant to be knit on a US 6 needle. I had this beautiful variegated yarn in the stash, and I knew I wanted to make kind of a thick, oversized shawl, and I thought that the visual elements of this shawl, between sort of the garter stitch and then just some lovely eyelets, would be really nice and wouldn't distract from the or the variegated color wouldn't distract from the pattern too much. I thought it would work together. So I used approximately 600 yards of a worsted weight yarn. I went ahead and moved up to size 9 needles, and I potentially could go up to 10, and I thought about that partway through, but I was kind of done, or I was far enough in that I didn't want to rip and go back. And I still think I got a decent size shawl, and again, this has not been blocked. I don't want to block it super severely because I like the squishy garter stitch, but I got a perfectly sizable shawl here, so it's larger than my wingspan. The shawl starts at one tip and then goes through. It continues growing throughout the shawl, and then it has these lovely sections of eyelet lace in between the garter sections, and then towards the end you do a larger chunk of eyelet, and then you finish the pattern, and the very finish is a little bit of a picot bind off. I was not sure that I would have enough yardage to complete it, but I did. I had about 620 yards, and I only had a few grams left over when I was done, and I knit the pattern exactly as written, so that was a total do. The yarn that I had was an old sort of one-off from Fat Cat Knits back when she was dyeing. She does still have an Etsy shop and is doing some dyeing of braids and then a lot of work with bats and jewelry. So you still could check her out. It's Fat Cat Knits on Etsy. But these skeins were Tarhi worsted that she had dyed in the colorway. She called it Aquarius, and it is pinks and purples and greens and blues, and I am just really pleased with this. This was the perfect thing to knit this week. It was soothing, it was easy, I had the pattern memorized, I didn't have to think about it, and as you can tell, for me to get through over 600 yards of yarn between last weekend and this weekend, I definitely enjoyed it. So this was kind of my perfect knit, my first quarantine or stay-at-home knitting. And again, that's the Bondi Shawl by Meg Gadsby. My modifications, such as they are, basically just modifying yarn used and needle size, are on my project page. And I'm going to wash it and block it now that my blocking boards are free, and then take some pictures of it this week. So that is the plan. The ends are actually woven in, the ones that you see hanging. I just didn't clip them. In general, when I weave in ends to block, oftentimes I will weave in the ends before I block, but wait to trim them until after I block. That is because sometimes as I block and as I stretch, it pulls the elasticity of the end, and those ends that I have carefully woven in sometimes will pop out, and I hate it when that happens. So usually what I do is I weave in my ends and then block and then snip them after blocking to ensure that nothing comes loose. So whenever I show you something and I say it's finished and there are a couple ends hanging from it, it's probably just because they are waiting there for me to block. So that is what I've got. That is the Bondi Shawl. So that finished, I tried to think about what else I would want to pick up, and I did start 2 things last week, as I showed you, and I don't know if you're feeling this right now. I think part of this is just some of my anxiety about everything that's going on and being home, and I don't want to say a general boredom, but I tend to get a little bit listless when I often find it happens around the holidays when I'm off of work or my schedule's a little different than normal. I have a lot more time at home than normal. There isn't anything I technically should be doing or have to do, and I'm just kind of, I don't know, I get kind of listless and restless. So I looked back at the 2 patterns that I cast on it last week, and that was, one was a hat, and I do want to pick that one up, but one was a sweater, and I looked at the weather and it's been warmer, and I decided that I didn't want to necessarily focus on a sweater, a heavy sweater right now that I wouldn't be able to wear, and I have plenty of fingering weight yarn in stash, including a couple sweater quantities, so I decided I wanted to pull some of the yarn out of my stash and start a new sweater. So what I pulled out is yarn that I got at, I believe, last year's Ply-Away. And it is from Yarn Geek Fibers, who I love. I have knit with their yarns multiple times before, and they have beautiful colorways. And this one is on the Rocketeer base, which is, let me tell you, it is 80% merino wool, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 4 ounces, 113 grams, 496 yards. So a kind of light fingering weight. If you know Yarn Geek, she dyes her colorway names for famous yarn geeky women, and so this is the colorway Vonda N. McIntyre, who is a science fiction writer, and it is this wonderful kind of aquamarine turquoise color, and then it's got splotches of hot pink and magenta and purple. And so I really liked this, and I thought it would be fun for a summer tea. And then I went through multiple patterns before I found one that I really wanted to do. I actually started and ripped a couple of other projects, but I believe what I have settled on is the Ripple Crop Top by Jessie Maed Designs. It's M-A-E-D. She's the one who did the Ripple Bralette, and she has several other patterns that have become quite popular this year. The Ripple crop top is exactly sort of what it sounds like. It is a V-necked crop top, or a V-necked sweater cropped with short sleeves. And what I have decided to do is I am not particularly in the market for a super crop top. I don't want to show my belly button. Nobody wants to see my belly button. That said, what I have decided is just to lengthen it. And the pattern is fairly simple. It is a paid for pattern, so I'm not going to give too much away. But the pattern starts from the bottom up, and you knit your rib in, you knit your ribbed crop, you knit your ribbing in the round up until the underarms, and then you split to do the front and the back. So I have settled in for the long haul because for my size, it suggests that I do 6 or 7 inches, and I think I'm going to do more like 10 or 11 inches so that I get, I'm going to do this sweater a little bit shorter. Like, it's probably not going to be hip length. I think it's going to be like top of jeans length. So it will be a little bit shorter, but I'm not going to go super cropped because I don't care to bare my midriff, and that is not a judgment call. If you do, please, please do. I want to see what makes you happy. What makes me happy is not worrying that my belly button is showing. So I started last night and got through about an inch of ribbing. This is going to be kind of a long haul project. I expect it will take me probably the better part of the next month. Maybe not. We'll see. But I am grooving along, and I am really enjoying this colorway. I think this top lends itself well to speckled yarn, and I'm really, really liking this. It seems so summery and kind of watery blue, and I'm very, very excited for it. I'm not sure that it will be the best color up against my face. I have contemplated buying something that would go with kind of the dark purple bits and doing a dark purple edging, but we will see. So that is what I'm working on. I'm working from 2 cakes, and as you can see, they actually are quite different. I didn't think they looked different when I wound them up, but they are. That just means slightly different dye lots. This one is much bluer than this one. However, I am alternating them in the round, and I don't think you can really tell. I guess you can kind of see a little bit of the stripes with the whiter one, but I think as I continue to alternate in the round, I think it will be fine. And my plan is I have 3 skeins of this, which is probably more than I need, although it has occurred to me that I might actually try and add slightly longer sleeves to the crop top if I have them. I just don't know exactly how I'm going to go through my yarn since I'm adding several inches to the body length. And so I am going to wind up the 3rd skein at some point and figure out how to work them all in so that I don't have anything that looks off. I can't tell from being wound in the skein as opposed to the ball, whether this one is more like the top or the bottom. I suspect it might be more like the bottom with the bright blue, but I'm just gonna have to see, and once I figure that out, I will alternate appropriately so that I don't have any big blotches or sections that don't match. So that is my current project. Again, I'll probably pick up the hat this week, and I have something else I wanted to talk about, which I will show you momentarily, and I may cast on for who knows what else. I do have some yarn for samples. I am waiting for some decisions on patterns, so I could pick up another sample for Zen Yarn Garden, and I also have things that I'm working on for myself. Patterns that I'm working on that are my patterns. So we will see. I kind of have to see how it goes, but I certainly should have more to show you next week. So the final thing that I have been working on, and I have decided to make more of a priority project, is I have been working on my Ripple Crochet Afghan. And actually I am in the middle of a row, which is not super smart, but I will just pull the loop out so that I'm set. I will have to finish this later. I was watching my friend Anne of Woolly Wonka Fibers podcast last week, and she talked about how there is a group doing a 100-day project, and you can find more information about it at 100dayproject.com. And they have some not prescribed projects. They have some themes and some things that they're doing around their 100-day project, but they also say that you can do your own 100-day project. And I forgot to look. I think they're starting on April 1st, but I am not sure. And I thought it would be really interesting to do a 100-day project sort of in the time of coronavirus. My guess is in the next 2 to 3 months, or 90-ish days, close to 100 days, are going to be kind of interesting. I'm hoping that we will get to return to some semblance of our previous life before then, but at the same time, I think we're probably going to be in and out of social distancing for a while, keeping this thing in check until we have a vaccine, and I have no idea what our life looks like post-coronavirus or post-peak. Like right now, the US is sort of in a desperate situation in several areas of the country that are overloaded. They're still predicting our peak to come in April, May, and June. So not to get too dire, but I thought it would be interesting to work on a project during this time. And the crochet blankets that I've been doing have 108 rows. And so I thought it would be really nice to, plus a border around the outside. So I thought it would be really nice to spend the next 100 days putting at least one stripe a day on my crochet blankets. So I've showed you this one before. This is Miles' striped blanket, and as you can see, I hit the last color, which was this kind of purpley plummy here. This kind of, I guess it's more of a magenta-y purple, and then I am starting to work back out through the colorways, and I'm currently on the blue. So I'm just basically going to ripple back and forth from red through purple, then back out to red, and so my thought is that I am going to do 1 row a day. I know I've said that's what I want to do, but I haven't made it a priority, but I thought it would be really interesting, and signing up for the 100-day project would sort of make me try and be accountable, obviously just to myself, but really to make sure that I get that ripple row in each day. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't have to be a new project. So I am just going to continue on with what I am doing, and I should be able to, in the course of the next 100 days, finish this one and start the next one. So the next one will be for Roxy. Again, I am working these blankets for my niece and nephew. They have outgrown their baby blankets. Roxy is 6 and Miles is 3. The pattern that I'm using is the Woodland Crochet Along, which is a blanket pattern by Lucy of Attic 24. The pattern is on Ravelry, and technically it's free on her blog. Ravelry just points you to her blog, and she has a whole bunch of color kits that she sells through, and now I can't think of the name of it. It is a yarn company in the UK, and she uses the Stylecraft DK in all kinds of great colors. The packet that I picked up, the package that I picked up is, I can't remember which one it is. It's for Sunny Brights, I think, and it was not meant for the Woodland Crochet, but all of her kits basically are interchangeable with her blankets, because all of her blankets are 108 rows plus the border, which makes roughly a blanket for a twin size bed. So that is what I am doing. And again, I'm about a foot in here and through one repeat of the colors, and now I'm working back out on the second repeat, and it's just a simple kind of feather and fan crochet. So again, I'll be working on this over the next 100 days, and I'll be excited to see progress and finish this one, and then hopefully start on the next one for Roxy. So, sip of tea and then we'll move on. Everything has been so dry for the last like 4 or 5 days. I've been waking up in the morning super dry. My skin is super dry. We've just had winds, and there has been a little bit of rain, but mostly it has just been super, super dry. So let's talk about spinning. I did finish my last spin. So you may remember that my last spin, I was digging into deep stash, and I pulled out a loop bullseye bump, and I spun from one end to the other. If you remember the loop bullseye bumps, they're basically roving, pin drafted roving, that is wound into a big bump, and the center was a bright turquoise, and then it faded out through a darker turquoise and green all the way through gray and black. And what I did with this skein was I spun it as thin as I possibly could, and then I chain plied, and I have not washed it or set it yet. I suspect that I will get probably right around 300 yards of a Sport to DK weight, which is not bad. It was almost 5 ounces of fiber. I spun and plied it on my Ashford Joy. If I had it to do over, I probably would have plied it on my mini spinner, but I did enjoy the spinning on my Ashford. And so I have started my next spin on there, which I'll talk about in just a second. But I really enjoyed this one. Honestly, my only complaint about this is that the teal portion is so small compared to the black portion is just enormous. It was like probably half the fiber in there. So I feel like I want to use this for some kind of shawl or something, and I will have to use the turquoise up at the top to get kind of a decent spread of the colors, and I'm sure that is how it was designed, but I wish it had a little bit more yardage in the brighter colorways. I do love the way it fades through the colors though, and I'm excited to turn it into something. For now, it will just get a bath and a final measurement, and then it will be pretty yarn for me to look at. Like I said, this was a skein from Deep Stash. It is not good enough to sell, so I'm not going to pop it up in the shop. There were a few times where there were breaking, or there were extra little coils, or my chain plying could definitely use some work. But overall, I'm fairly pleased with it. This was one of those skeins that I had been hoarding for when I became a better spinner, and I'm really glad that I pulled it out and used it. I'm a decent enough spinner now that I am not unhappy with what I got, and I think now is just a time to pull out some things that you've been saving for a rainy day, because I don't know that it gets much rainier than this. And, do the things that bring you pleasure right now. Be gentle to yourself. And crafting is supposed to uplift you and bring you enjoyment. And so I decided to do that this week. So that is my loop bullseye bump. In the meantime, I went ahead and selected another two braids of fiber to spin. Southern Cross Fiber is having a laid back spin along, and in general that just means use some portion of Southern Cross Fibers to participate in the group. And actually I haven't even gone over and announced that I'm participating, but I did pull out 2 Southern Cross Fiber braids again that I had been hoarding in my deep stash. These are from 2015 from his Mega Sal, which stands for Mega Spin Along. He spearheaded the effort, but he and a number of other dyers created special colorways for Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, and Sir Terry Pratchett has unfortunately passed away since then. But I went ahead and pulled out one of those skeins. This happens to be a skein that David of Southern Cross Fibers dyed, and it is blues and greens and this really beautiful burgundy colorway. There was more of that, but I have it on the wheel, and the burgundy section is one of the sections that I'm spinning up right now. So this is on South African Superfine. which is a super, 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 super baby soft merino that likes to spin whisper thin. And so that is how I am spinning it. So this will probably take me a while. I have 2 braids, and I think I've decided that I'm going to do a fractal spin, which means I am spinning this braid straight through as is with long color repeats. And theoretically, the second braid I will tear up into strips and spin it in short repeats. This one I will definitely ply on my mini spinner, as my Ashford bobbin can only take about 6 ounces of fiber, and this will be a full 8 ounces, or at least close to that. And so I am planning to spin on this one as it makes me happy and work through it, and I don't know whether this will be up in the shop or not. My guess is probably, but I'm not going to commit until I'm done, because as I said, these are braids that I was hoarding in my stash for a rainy day, and if something comes to me that I would like to do with it, I may keep it for myself. I just don't know. I'm kind of having fun getting back into spinning. I've been spending about 30 minutes each day spinning, and it's just been a nice habit to get into while things outside are uncertain. So I think that's all I have for you today. I hope you are managing well. I hope you are healthy, that you are enjoying the people that you're staying home with. I'm feeling for those of you who have kids who you are trying to homeschool and keep occupied. And I hope that you are, modeling through and finding a few minutes of enjoyment for yourself in your crafting. I will continue to do the podcast. And so until I see you next week, I will say thank you for joining me, and happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.